Hi, I'm Romona West. I'm the Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the College of Arts and Sciences. And here today, I have a very special person with me, Dean Todd Shields, who is the Dean of Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences. Hi, Todd.
Hello, Ramona. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
It's been way too long.
Yes, it's good to see you face to face.
Finally.
Yes. And I am so appreciative of your leadership and your efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Well, thank you.
And so I am super thankful that today we are going to really talk about the Fulbright name, our college name.
Yes.
And the Fulbright statue that sits in front of Old Main.
Yes.
All right, so I've prepared a couple of questions for you today.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So, Dean Shields, can you share the purpose and the makeup of the Chancellor's Fulbright Committee?
Sure. Back right before the fall semester in 20, the Chancellor Steinmetz talked to me and Provost Robinson about what other institutions were doing that were facing similar questions. Are we associated with names and statues that represent our values, or do we not? And he pointed out a couple of institutions that had put together committees comprised of most of our constituents, and then really giving them the authority to make an investigation and then a recommendation to the Chancellor, and then that would go up to the system president and the board.
Okay. So who is actually on this committee, Todd? Are you at liberty to say?
I believe so. I'm not going to be able to name them all. There's 19 people.
Okay.
And it's comprised of alumni, faculty, staff, and students. And the ASG president, the faculty senate president, and the staff senate president, and then one of the people who are on the alumni board. Okay. All of those are elected positions. And then I would like to say that there's probably an even number of those, each one of those groups, but 19 people total. 19. Mm-hmm. And how are these 19 great people selected? Well, there was an iterative process. Associate Dean Calvin White and I came up with a list of, maybe at one point we had 40 plus names of people we thought would have great insights. Mm-hmm. Representing faculty and students and alumni, and we turned those in, and we would say, hey, let's ask this person, and then some people said, yes, I really want to be a part of this, and other people said, I really don't have the time, or some people thought they just didn't want to be a part of it. Right. And ultimately, we've got a group of 19 people that are just, they've done an amazing job. Great. All right. That's really great to hear, Dean Shields. So if I understand you, these folks are volunteering their time. They are. Yes. They are volunteering their time. Okay. They are. They all agreed to take this on. It's a very important step. I've been telling the committee that regardless of their recommendation, that the campus and other campuses too, we're not unique, but the campus really didn't have a process for how do we go about understanding, do we identify with this person or this statue or this name or this symbol, and does it represent our values of who are we and who we want to become? And regardless of their recommendation, they're setting a precedent that will serve the campus for decades. And the fact that they've been very deliberate, the fact that they've taken it so seriously, the fact that they have worked really hard on this, I think has really set a bar high, which I think is important. We should be able to talk about difficult things at a university campus. And they have done so with, as I've seen, very respectfully agreeing and disagreeing with each other, and then seeking great knowledge. That's great. Well, you talked a little bit about this process and setting precedent. So tell us exactly what is the process that they're going through? Well, back in August, once we had the folks who agreed to be on the committee, we did look at what was happening at other institutions. Harvard was one example that Calvin and I followed quite a bit. Ohio State was following a similar process, as was IU, Indiana University. And they were asking the committee who they wanted to hear from. And members of the committee said they wanted to hear from historians. They wanted to hear from biographers. They wanted to hear from different area study programs like African American Studies and Latin American Studies. They wanted to hear from student groups. They wanted to hear from faculty senate. They wanted to hear from the staff senate. So we set up meetings with all of those groups over the fall semester. And in some cases, several members of the group would attend the Zoom meeting with the committee. In some cases, it was just one single person. In the case of meeting with the alumni, we actually had quite a few alumni who joined the meeting virtually.
Okay. It does sound like it was a very diligent, intentional process that we really could cascade. And as you said, they're
Right.
setting precedent. Sounds very democratic and
Yeah.
very inclusive. So thank you all.
Yes.
Thank you all for that. And thank you to you and Dean White for helping to co-facilitate that. My next question, Dean Shields, is I understand that this committee has been deliberating since fall
Yes.
of 2020, right? And so what authority or deference has this committee been given about the decision, the actual decision about the statue and the college name? And then I have a follow-up question
Okay.
to that. So if you talk about that, what are the next steps for them? Along with
So they were specifically asked to give a recommendation on the statue. Should there be a change in the statue's location? Should there be some contextualization? Should it be moved altogether? The second one was the college's name. And should the college embrace that name or should it not? Should the campus embrace the name of Bruff Commons? That was the third. That's gotten the probably least amount of attention, but that was the third question that the chancellor asked the committee to address. And then the committee has taken it on themselves, and we've applauded them. Some of the other things they see that they think that the campus should be doing. And I'm not entirely sure what their recommendation will be on any of those, or particularly the things that they're still thinking. But I believe they're going in the direction of scholarships and fellowships and hiring people of color, hiring diverse counselors and teachers and staff.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. It sounds like, and I'm sure you recall that there were, I believe, 15 demand items from the Black Caucus.
Right.
Sounds like they're addressing some of those things or trying to address some of those things from them, as well as the hashtag Black at UARC. So
Right.
that's really admirable.
And when we had students come and talk to the group, I believe we had representatives from both of those groups, and so they were able to talk about some of the demands that they had and the reasons why that they were asking for those things. And I felt like the committee was very responsive to that.
That's great. So you talked about that they're going to make a recommendation. So I think some of our listeners would like to know, when can we expect a decision?
You know, I would like to say it's probably soon, but I would have thought, I think back in August, if you saw some of the earlier conversations that we had about this, I thought, well, maybe we'll be done in 8 weeks. That was very optimistic. After we heard the number of guests that they wanted to hear from and people that they wanted to consult, it was clear it was going to take pretty much the whole semester. I was kind of encouraging them to come to a conclusion in end of November, early December, but the committee were the ones that said, we want to keep talking about this. And my understanding, they're trying to do everything they can to reach consensus. They're trying to find agreement on as many items as they can. Again, they've taken it so seriously, they want to have an impact.
That's great, Dean Shields. As I think about this, I think about the charge that they have before them and how high that mountain might be for them to climb. And trying to get a consensus amongst 19 folks might be a bit difficult.
Right.
So depending on the recommendation, depending on the decision that is made, irrespective, I do believe, Dean Shields, there's going to be some part of our campus community or alumni or constituencies that are going to be upset
Sure.
or even disappointed with whatever
Sure.
the decision is. I'd like to know, as Dean of Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences, what do you think we need to do to ensure that we have unity going forward and that we are practicing as an inclusive behavior as we possibly can?
Right. Well, I think that, even when the committee was formed, we heard so many different opinions on these questions, these issues. And I think that those debates are healthy. As a professor, when people in class are disagreeing, I always think that's great. I encourage that type of thing. So you're right. I think that this is one of those decisions where there will be people that are upset or not happy whatever the committee recommends, and then whatever the chancellor decides, or the president of the system, or the board of trustees decide. Meanwhile, in Fulbright College, we've definitely taken this seriously, but we've also done our best in the past year, even before the formation of this committee, to start making sure that we're doing everything we can to make Fulbright College anti-racist and a place that is welcoming and diverse and inclusive. And you've done an enormously amazing job in all of that. And so many of the programs that you started are central to that. So I know, the DE&I hours that you have started have been wildly popular. The bridge programs that we're working on to help faculty and staff and students succeed. The ouch training that it's on its way, and
Yes.
the cultural sensitivity training that we took, and the ideals center trainings that we're going to offer, and working on inclusive practices for searches. I'm expecting to see quite a bit of success from those as well. Even the DE&I committee that you started with faculty and staff and students has been, I think, a really necessary thing that I'm really glad that you suggested we do that. I think the idea of putting a couple of those people from the DEI committee on our college cabinet is a good idea. And as you know, we're going to take that to the faculty for their vote this spring. And if they approve of that, we'll have 2 members from the DEI committee that are on the permanent college cabinet, which would be great for us. And then we're continually talking about, what can we do that will continue to make this place a better place.
Right. I certainly appreciate your time today, Dean Shields. I often call you Todd.
Yeah,
so
well,
if
of
you
course.
Don't mind.
No, please, of course.
So Todd, I want to just say thank you from the bottom of my heart for answering these questions today.
Oh, my
I know
pleasure,
it
Romona.
means not only a lot to our listeners, but it means a lot to me as well. And I think you're right. Irrespective of the decision that's made, I think it's about how do we move forward? How do
Right.
we continue to do those things that are important to our campus community
Right.
and be as inclusive as possible as we possibly can? And I think that that's what's important. And I'm glad your committee is looking at that and thinking about other ways
Yep.
beyond the name that
Yep.
we can move in
Absolutely.
the right direction.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for joining
Thank
me
you.
today.
It's so good to see you again.
Good to see you.